Hello, puppies and kittens. Welcome to a wonderful, another bright day and Blasphemers Bible. Job 34, getting almost to the good stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
Almost, yeah, we're almost to Psalms, and that's when we can really stop paying attention.
You know,
there is some very cool. There is some very cool stuff that we'll be getting through in these last few chapters. Especially, I think in chapter 38, that's where we get some really interesting stuff. But there's also cool stuff in chapter 40, which I'm sure Aaron is going to get a kick out of that one as well. So,
but first, we need to listen to Elihu.
To finding out how. Yes, I'm still looking forward to finding out how completely scientifically illiterate God is, because that's hilarious. But you know, I'm just having such a wonderful morning in a free country.
Yeah, shut up about that, would you? Because
nope.
Lawrence and I are still in a dystopian hellscape.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, this place absolutely sucks. You know what? There's not really more to say other than that. Anything
I just want it to be clear. I voted for Mark Carney. Okay. I voted for that man before the Davos speech.
Oh yeah, that whole thing was an embarrassment. I don't even want to fucking even without that, this entire last year was atrocious. This year is also atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, at least it'll be our last one.
That is true. It is our last one. So
okay, so we are jumping into Job 34. Do we have any opening comments on that?
Yep, we have Elihu speaking again. Not again, but it's his second speech. And so, yes. So, yeah.
They're doing that thing again where it's like...
Is Elihu, remind me, is Elihu the upstart teenager from the last chapters? Yes.
Yeah.
He's the one who's belittling...
younger than the others, but yeah.
He's the one who's belittling both the Job and the friends. And he's oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I'm too young for you, but I'm better than all of you.
Right, I'm really gonna show you what's up
for
here.
His elders to speak.
Yeah, best listen to me, Bucko.
Yeah. Okay.
Clean your room.
Eat your veggies.
All right. Well, more specifically, Elihu continued and said, "Hear my words, you wise men, and give ear to me, you who know. For the ear tests words, and the palate tastes food. Let us choose what is right. Let us determine among ourselves what is good. For Job has said, I am innocent, and God has taken away my right. In spite of being right, I am counted a liar. My wound is incurable, though I am without transgression. Who is there like Job, who drinks up scoffing like water, who goes in company with evildoers, who walks with the wicked? For he has said, it profits one nothing to take delight in God. Therefore, hear me, you who have sense. Far be it for God that he should do wickedness, and from the Almighty that he should do wrong. For according to their deeds he will repay them, and according to their ways he will make it befall them. Of a truth, God will not do wickedly, and of the Almighty he will not pervert justice. Who gave him charge over the earth, and who laid on him the whole world? If he should take back his spirit, or to himself and gather himself his breath, all flesh would perish together, and all mortals return to dust. If you have understanding, hear this. Listen to what I say. Shall one who hates justice govern? Well, we're kind of there, boy. Will you condemn one who is righteous? Will you condemn one who is righteous and mighty, who says to a king, you scoundrel, and to princes, you wicked men, who shows no partiality to nobles, nor regards the rich more than the poor, for they are all the work of his hands. In a moment they die. At midnight the people are shaken and pass away, and the mighty are taken away by no human hand. For his eyes are upon the ways of mortals, and he sees all their steps. There is no gloom or deep darkness where evildoers may hide themselves. He has not, for he has not appointed a time for anyone to go before God in judgment. He shatters the mighty without investigation. He sets others in their place. Thus, knowing their works, he overturns them in the night, and they are crushed. He strikes them for their wickedness while others look on. Because they turned away from following him, they have no regard for any of his ways. So that they caused the cry of the poor to come to him, and he heard the cry of the afflicted. When he is quiet, who can condemn? When he hides his face, who can behold him? Whether nation or person, it is the same. So that the godless should not reign, or those who ensnare the people. For has anyone said to God, I have endured punishment, I will not offend any more. Teach me that what I do not see. If I have done iniquity, I will do it no more. Will he then pay back to suit you because you reject it? For you who must choose and not I, therefore declare what you know. Those who have sense will say to me, and the wise who will hear me will say, Job speaks without knowledge. His words are without insight. Would that Job were tried to the limit, because his answers are those of the wicked. For he adds rebellion to his sin. He claps his hands among us and multiplies his words against God.
So,
what a sniveling twit.
Oh, one.
Sure, Jan.
This guy sucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where was it?
It's,
where it's.
You were right about teenager, because he is wrong really confidently.
Oh, he's like, also misrepresenting Job.
Really confidently wrong. Obviously.
But... Yeah, in his little spiel there from verses 5 through 9, totally misrepresenting Job. I don't think Job anywhere in all of his talks was like, no one is quite as good as me, but that is how he's portraying it, though.
I am the most humble of all men.
Yeah. He's
yes,
portraying
and
it as
I am the most demure and beautiful of all women.
Right, of course. Let's see. Right. Now, there is. I'm sure there's a lot we can say about the whole. Where was it? Right. So when he's talking about like the leaders, now I get the point that he's trying to nail here, and that's more of like the, if someone is really wicked, God will be the one to depose them or something. But no, as we know in history and in reality, that's not true. Sometimes bad people just have a lot of power and then they die. And I'm not gonna put that one on God. They seem to maintain a cult even after that. So it's not quite just desserts, but there is. Let's see, or was it in verse 18 there? At least it's starting in verse 16. Yeah, if you have understanding, hear this, listen to what I say. Shall one who hates justice govern? Will you condemn one who is righteous and mighty, who says to a king, you scoundrel, and to princes, you wicked men, who shows no partiality to nobles? So, like, obviously, we shouldn't give them special treatment, but at the time, that was like the super common belief, right? The reason that you're in that position is because there's something special about you, because you are good to some degree or divine in some way, depending on what culture you're in.
I wonder sometimes how sincere that belief was. I feel like it was flattery that became like an obligate theology almost. Like people would, yes, okay, in the age of tyrants and blood, oh, you're so generous. You're not slaughtering us all. Thank you, sir. You're just the kindest and most generous. And please flatter the insane warlord so he doesn't slaughter me. And then it almost became like theology. I swear.
Well,
how much of theology is just made up from people trying to make excuses for bullshit?
I mean, for a lot of it, yes. Although, like, think about it this way, right? I think last week, I'm guessing it was Mike Huckabee. It feels like something Mike Huckabee would say. I think he said that, did he say that, like, Trump was ordained by God or something like that? Or was it, like, some Fox News host or something?
Did he run out of locusts?
He must have. But, like,
Did God run out of locusts?
I think someone some big name was like, Trump was absolutely ordained by God. God sent him on a mission, stuff like that. Do you know who I'm talking about, Aaron? Did you see this? Okay, I'll pull it up in a couple minutes here. But
talking about somebody being sent on a mission from God. Yeah, I remember I saw that movie.
Not quite. Just some crazy.
A lot of spiritual leaders have said that.
Yeah,
a lot of spiritual leaders have said
and
that,
the Blues
and
Brothers.
they're insane. Well,
yes, and the Blues Brothers.
I mean, about Trump specifically.
Right. Yeah. So this might be just like, instead of people just doing this to placate leader, this may have easily been people genuinely believing it.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, is that if it began as placating for very obvious and practical reasons.
Oh, sure. Okay.
All you need to do is have someone take that literally. And then it's like, oh, they really thought this was the most generous. And it's like, maybe it started there. And then you say that in front of your kids and they're literal minded and they just keep repeating it. And then people start to think that's how it actually is. I don't know.
Yes, by the way, it was Mike Huckabee. I'm going to pull up the quote here.
And we have another question from Jojo Freelancer. In which place is the book of Job written, and was it by higher-ups or common people?
Well, the thing is, we've talked about the location before, and it's not like we can get specific on that. And then the thing is, all these books, all these texts were written by people who were like in the upper echelon of society. We know that because they were written. People didn't have they didn't have access to reading and writing as readily as we do. So in the ancient world, if you could read or write, you could really only do that if you were wealthy or born into a wealthy family. It was a privilege.
It was written at 34 45th Avenue, apartment B. There we go. We can be specific.
Okay, yeah. There you go.
I think, sure. I mean, I think there is a question though about, because a lot of what we've covered is in fact court propaganda, not Job specifically, but previous things have been all about, keeping a record that angles it specifically way. This comes off a lot more like a philosopher struggling with the question of why does evil happen to good people, and maybe coming out. So, well, I don't think it obviously was not some poor commoner because they couldn't fucking read anything, much less write. I do think it's possible that this was sincere as opposed to, top-down hierarchical propaganda in its attempt to struggle with this question. I don't know. I'm saying that might be a better distinction to make.
And then we have Shut Up Matt, who says,
I wouldn't even. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Shut Up Matt says, Aaron, I've been searching for the Book of Armaments. It's not in the KJV, NIV. Which Bible version should I look in? Of course, anybody know what the Book of Armaments is, Lilith?
I think
not. Never mind.
I have no idea.
Isn't it one of the ones? I think it's one of the lost things that they reference, because
it's the one that talks about the sheep and the sloths and the breakfast cereals and the holy hand grenade of Antioch.
Yes. Oh, yes, of course. And 3 shall be the number of the counting, and the number of the counting shall be 3.
Yes.
Well, alas, the Book of Armaments was decreed a very silly book, and was cut by the synod of Sir not appearing in this film. And unfortunately, the records were buried, so we no longer have access to the Book of Armaments.
Yes, along with Robin's Minstrels.
And there was much rejoicing.
Yeah. Book of Armaments?
Lawrence is sick of us. Yeah, it's a Monty Python.
Yeah, I looked it up. It was a Monty Python thing.
We need to get some culture.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I see. No, I forgot about that. Okay, so I'll start with verses 2 through 4. Habel comments, quote, Elihu's opening summons is addressed to the wise and the judges of the community. Judges are literally those with knowledge. They are to judge Job's case in verse 4. Elihu is assuming the role of chief judge and arbiter and calling his peers to confirm his arguments in the case. In support of his appeal, he quotes, almost verbatim, an old proverb used by Job in 12:11. Elihu's audience is to function as a legal assembly, exercising critical discernment in the judging of Job's case, in verse 3. The outcome of this trial is to be a verdict that exemplifies justice, in verse 4. The rendering defensible, tob, is suggested by 2 Samuel 15:3. Elihu is not concerned about what is good, but what is legally defensible. The friends had decided that Job was already judged and punished for his crimes. Elihu looks forward to examining the case within the rules of legal procedure.
How kind of him. How generous.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, he just seems to be going back to the old point of the idea that God is just, and if bad things happen to you, you must have deserved them, and God has chosen so that you should deserve them. Which is obviously bullshit in this story, but it was a perspective for a long time, and people had to find ways when they were confronted with. It's interesting when our beliefs come against something, evidence that they are false. We have to either adjust our beliefs or rewrite reality. And a lot of people will do that. If they believe that God gives you what you deserve, then when you get something terrible, they have to find a way that you deserve it. And I mean, we've discussed this before. This appears to be the argument that this book was written to address, to say, actually, sometimes it is more complicated than that, which is a step in the right direction, such as it is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, on verse 6, there's nothing in Job which matches what's told here. Job never said that the case against him is a lie. The root for lie, kazav, is used in 6:28, where Job says that he will not lie to his friends, and in 24:25, where he throws out the challenge that he be proved a liar for his analysis of social injustices that God does nothing about. Clines notes that some, like Septuagint, Dorm, Terrian, and Pope, amend the text slightly to read, He, i.e. God, lies concerning my case, which is equally hard to parallel. He writes that while the language may be the language of Elihu, the thoughts are identifiably the thoughts of Job. On verses 8 and 9, Hartley comments, quote, Elihu goes on to accuse Job of keeping company with the evildoers, po'alei aven, even wicked men, anshe resha. That is, his attitude indicates that he has joined the company of sinful men. Job has taken this way because he believes that a man does not profit, shakan, compare 22 and 15:3, by living in a way that pleases or is acceptable, ratza, to God. In his view, upright behavior has no earthly advantage. Such a scornful attitude is indicative of folly and rebellion against God, according to the teaching of the wisdom literature. For example, Proverbs 17:5 and 30:17. Elihu again says explicitly what Eliphaz had insinuated in 22:15-17, namely that Job has taken the way of the godless. Unfortunately, Elihu perceives only the negative implications of Job's sincere questioning. On verses 10 through 12, Habel comments, quote, the opening topic statement in 10b through 11 announces the unimpeachable character of El as a guiltless deity who dispenses justice in the human domain according to the mortal conduct of individuals. The root rasha connotes both the moral act of doing wrong and the forensic status of being in the wrong or guilty. The nouns avel and avla connote both unlawful activity or injustice and false testimony. that El, who establishes the righteous order of the cosmos, could ever be considered guilty of wrongdoing or preventing justice. Sorry, I have a phone.
I'm going to assume that that is an idea that the author finds quite objectionable, the idea that God could pervert justice.
Oh yeah. There's absolutely no way he would pervert justice. I mean,
Even when he brags about doing exactly that.
right? Yeah, but even that was just.
Yeah, well,
I don't know. Theists do that whole thing where because God did it, it has to be just, right? Like,
is that the divine command?
Yeah,
theory, even when
yeah,
God brags
command,
about lying, it's still justified.
Right? Yeah, it's divine command, like where because God says so, sort of thing.
It's like God
yeah,
could shoot
it's the
somebody on
most
Fifth Avenue and
immoral.
still not lose any votes.
Right? Yeah. Oh man, this country is
The phenomenon
a
of
hellscape.
Christian Trumpism is makes so much more sense. To be honest, it always made sense to me.
Yeah,
It's a sad thing. For those
kinda
people who know
terrifying.
good Christians, it may have come as a shock.
Right? Yeah.
It is, because it's all the worst elements and none of the redeeming virtues.
Yeah, I do know some good Christians, and they do not support that guy, and they get very mad whenever someone says anything like God sent him, or he's like the Messiah or something like that. They get very mad.
Mm. Oh, my mother was horrified when I showed her just a handful of the weird, creepy, fetishizing posters that like cast Trump as Jesus 2.0.
Right.
And she was like, "Oh my God, like that is blasphemous. that is straight up blasphemy." And
Yeah,
my mom's not really the kind of person to get all blasphemy, but she's like, "No, that is not."
My mother was convinced that Donald Trump was still president after the 2020 election because fulfillment of prophecy.
Right. Yeah. That's something. It's always prophecy with them, I swear. And it's always prophecy they don't understand, or that they just haven't read. That's another option.
In fairness, what do they understand?
Exactly nothing. Yes.
I don't know. Not
So
much.
Trump was supposed to be the fourth feather, according to a misreading of some passage, and that meant that he was going to continue to reign until he was assassinated and would be replaced by I don't remember what all the shit was. I'm like, well, then he's not president now, so it can't continue, can it?
Fourth feather.
And she goes, well, he is president. Okay, Mom, if after say September, a year from now, if Trump is still in Mar-a-Lago and Biden is still in the White House, will you admit then that Trump is not president and that your sources lied to you? And she signed a piece of paper for me agreeing that on this date, if Trump's still in Mar-a-Lago and Biden is still acting as president, then she was wrong. But you know that faith means never admitting when you're wrong. So when that day came, I showed her that piece of paper, and she said, "You'll find out." I'm like, this is the agreement. This is the date. You said this is your signature. You'll find out. I think we already found out, Mom. This is the time. You agreed to. But they're never admit when you're wrong.
Okay, I'm back.
And I think I just want to say one thing to that point, because
I can't hear a thing.
Oh God. Okay, well, you get your headphones fixed.
No. Lawrence said something, but he couldn't hear it because you spoke.
Oh, sorry. I said, how was your booty call?
It was fine. It was fine.
Okay.
That redefines quickie for you. But seriously though, it's part of one of the things that I think we struggle as the atheist skeptic community. We struggle sometimes to be realistic about how people change their beliefs. Doing a hard 180 on something that you've invested your entire identity on is usually beyond most people's capacity. Making small steps. Like, remember when I told you, I think a week
I
ago,
gave her a
that when I
year.
was a Christian, shush. When I was a Christian, I was told that maybe I was suffering something terrible because God was using me. He was preparing me for a destiny, that I was really special to him, and that's why I was going through these terribly difficult things. And yeah, appeal to ego much, but that is a more realistic view than just looking at the person who's suffering, who is a good person and who hasn't done anything to deserve it, and just saying, well, obviously you did something horrible and God is always right. So la 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 reality. It's a movement away from this if you suffer, you deserve it mentality. It's still heavy copium and definitely an appeal to ego, which was one of the reasons I never fully trusted it, because straight ego is never the right answer. But at the same time, people move by degrees, and I had to move by degrees. I got out, took a while, but for something like this, even if this is just a might makes right tantrum on the part of God, it becomes, I guess, a step away from just denying the reality of innocent people suffering, because it doesn't work with your narrative.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll continue with where I stopped. So the nouns avel and avla connote both unlawful activity or injustice and false testimony. That El, who established the righteous order of the cosmos, could ever be considered guilty of wrongdoing or preventing justice is abhorrent to Elihu. His tone is emotive and dramatic. El is, above all, free from guilt. He is the just one, the equitable dispenser of rewards and punishments to mortals. This doctrine of retributive justice, which is common to many world and tribal religions, is a cornerstone of wisdom theology, as seen in Proverbs 4:10 through 19, and fundamental to the argument of the friends in Job 4:7, 8:3, and 6, and 15:20. Elihu recognizes that Job has challenged this doctrine as distorted and unrealistic. On verse 13, Clines comments, quote, the rhetorical question, who put the earth in his charge, plainly expects the answer, no one. There is no one who has assigned or entrusted, as pakat means at, for example, Numbers 4:27, 27:16, Jeremiah 15:3, and 51:27, the world to God's charge, since he is its sole creator. The second colon, though harder to interpret, is likely to have a parallel meaning. The previous three lines have all been in synonymous parallelism. Who gave him rule over the entire world? It is true that in the face of such authority, Job's challenge is a disparagement of God's person, according to Hartley. But there is more to it than that. The sentence can make sense in the context only if we understand that God's undisputed sovereignty over the world ensures that whatever he wants to happen does happen, and thus implicitly that if some humans are rewarded and some are punished, that is God's implementation of his ruling principle of retribution. On verses 14 and 15, Habel comments, quote, another mythological tradition, the annihilation of humans from the earth, may also be reflected in these verses. This motif, which is found in Egypt and in Mesopotamian flood myths, includes both a divine plan to withdraw life from earth and the execution of that plan by various destructive processes. In the biblical flood narrative, God first discovers the sinfulness of humans and grieves in his heart as he makes the decision to erase life in Genesis 6:5 through 7. Similarly, here, if God plans in his heart to eradicate life, then it will be totally destroyed. This mythic tradition recalling the destruction of all flesh, kol basar, compared Genesis 6:13, and the removal of humankind, Adam, from the face of the ground, is distinct from the doctrine of God's providential economy, in which his breath is either withheld or expelled in an ecological cycle of renewing the earth, as we see in Psalms 104, 29 through 30. Thus, even though much of the same hymnic terminology of this psalm is appropriated, the focus for Elihu is on the absolute power of God to eliminate all life at once, yachad, should he decide to do so.
There's a plan.
Oh, and Isaac said that he'll be here in 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, on 17, Hartley notes that in the Old Testament, justice is the foundation of God's rule, as we see in Psalms 96, 4 through 13. Elihu highlights this dogma by juxtaposing two of God's honorific titles, the righteous one, tzaddik, and the mighty one, kavil. If God fails to judge justly, as Job complains, then Job's belief that God is all-powerful is invalid. Since Job thinks that God rules supremely, then he is mistaken in his charge that God hates justice. Hartley notes that unlike modern democracies, where judicial system is separate from the executive, the ancient world tended to conflate the two. Clines adds that the issue here is not whether with God injustice and government are incompatible, according to Driver Gray, or whether in God right and might form a unity, according to Forer, but whether the governing of the universe is possible on any other basis but order and justice. On 18 and 19, Habel notes that in the sapiential tradition, human rules are expected to govern righteously, with wisdom as their counselor. Where they deny their office, the just one denounces them as scoundrels and condemns them as guilty of wickedness, rasha. Habel writes that this passage not only stresses the impartiality of God, but also highlights the principle that all earthly rulers are dependent on a higher authority who judges them according to his standards. He further writes, quote, "The tendency of rulers to arrogate absolute authority to themselves and claim divine right is a common theme of ancient mythology. Compare Ezekiel 28, 2 through 10. For a king to be denounced as a scoundrel, Belial, is to declare his downfall and link him with the perverts and scum of society, as in Judges 1922 and 2013. Yes, Lawrence, we know. God's impartiality in the treatment of rich and poor is connected with their common origin as creatures of one God. Compare Proverbs 22:2. The extension of this teaching is that any insult addressed to the poor is an insult to their maker, Proverbs 17:5, and will be duly punished. On 21.
Yes, we will all be duly punished.
Yeah. On 21 through 24, Clines notes that in verse 21, Elihu is borrowing the words of Job from 24:23, where Job speaks of God's apparent concern for the prosperity of the wicked. By saying that God sees all the steps of humans, Elihu uses Job's language at 31:4, where they were Job's steps that were being scrutinized by God, in the same sense as Elihu has in mind here. Clines also notes that a familiar trope in the Hebrew Bible is that the darkness cannot conceal wicked deeds from God's gaze, and there is no hiding from God, as we see in Psalms 139, 11 through 12, Jeremiah 23, 24, and Amos 9, 2 and 3. Regarding verses 23 and 24, he writes, quote, Job has made it a particular point of complaint against God that he does not hold regular days of assize at which the wicked can be sure to be held accountable in 24:1. Elihu may be alluding to Job's charge. It is an indirect rebuke of Job, thinks Wybray, though Job is speaking there of wrongdoers in general and not just of rulers. In any case, Job's real objection to the way God is governing the world is not that he does not hold regular court sessions, rather than meting out punishments on an ad hoc basis, but that he does not hold the guilty to account even after long periods have passed. And here is our
considering the
yeshiva
age
boy.
at which the wicked die. Isaac!
Hi. Sorry.
It's okay. How you doing?
Next Thursday.
You thought it was next Thursday?
I can't do it next Thursday, so.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, 25 through 28. Clines writes that little new is added in these verses, which are essentially a recapitulation of the content of verses 20 through 24. He notes that Bud deletes verses 25 to 28, while Beer deletes only verse 25 as a variant on verses 20 and 21. And Dorm, Kisane, Gray, NAB, and NEB moved verse 25 to precede verse 23. On 29 and 30, Hartley notes that these verses are very difficult to interpret since they are replete with textual problems. He notes that Septuagint removes verses 28 to 33, probably to shorten Elihu's speech. He writes that since no reconstruction has won a consensus, it is best to work with the Masoretic text and note some of the major themes. He writes, quote, "Though God remains silent, i.e., he lets affairs on earth take their ordinary course so that a tyrant rises to rule over a nation, who among mankind would ever be in a position to condemn him as Job has?" For example, 24, 1 through 17. When God hides his face, i.e., himself, or seems to withdraw his influence from the course of events on earth, no one can behold him. Then evil appears to reign supreme. Nevertheless, God is still in control over both a nation, Goy, and a man, Adam. God does not permit a godless man, Chanef, to establish a long enduring rule. Such a tyrant is characterized as one who lays snares, i.e., uses deceitful schemes to capture or coerce the people. Elihu holds that even if this is true, no claim that God rules unjustly could ever be substantiated. God's slowness to act does not deny his sovereignty.
Okay. Just because God doesn't do anything doesn't mean he can't. He just doesn't want to.
Mm.
Yeah, he's an interesting character. All the many excuses that have been come up with for all the things he hasn't done.
Yeah. Who put God in charge? The answer is no one. Who is in charge of the world? The answer is no one, but no one is going to say that part.
On verse 33, this verse is one of the most cryptic verses in the book. Hartley writes that the verse seems to contain a question put to Job, seeking to convince him of the absurdity of his resolve to demand that God prove his innocence. It is foolish for Job to think that God will recompense on his own terms. Habel writes that requite is probably a thematic allusion back to the topic statement of verse 11. Elihu seems to be calling on Job to recognize once and for all the impossibility of regaining a public response from God at court, especially since he is alienated from El, rejects his justice, and is repulsed by his way of operating.
See, to me, it kind of seems like the line of reasoning here is like like they're talking about negotiation. Like, yeah, will he? Because you're talking about verse 33, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Will he then pay back to suit you because you reject it? For you must choose and not I. Therefore, declare what you know. To me, it kind of seems like if we have this, like if we take it back to like a trial setting, for example, and let's say God determines that Job is the asshole, and he needs to get some sort of punishment or something. I think the rhetorical flair here would be that like, oh, should he like change his verdict just for you, kind of thing. That's kind of what it seems like to me. But
I feel like it's with the court element, it's almost like, are you going to demand compensation for God? Like,
sure,
are you going to sue him for damages, kind of thing?
But like there have been plenty of times throughout the Bible that we have seen some negotiations, let's say, with God. So it's not like he can't be to put it loosely, reasoned with.
Maybe more bargained with.
I said put it loosely, so
Bargained with, can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear. And it absolutely will not stop ever.
I don't know. I mean, Abraham got something out of him for like a little bit.
And finally, 34 through 37, Habel comments, quote, Elihu, by couching his verdict on Job in the terms of a decision by a wise council, further enhances his authority and thereby imposes additional pressure on Job to capitulate. The verdict itself declares Job devoid of correct knowledge, da'at, garrulous before God, recalcitrant in the extreme, fuck you, and prone to argue like wicked men. The verdict also includes a recommendation that Job be further tested so as to force him to his knees in humble submission. I've seen that before. Whether this testing is understood as an additional affliction from God or more relentless argumentation by Elihu and his companions is disputed. If the latter is intended, it provides Elihu with an excuse for continuing to speak even though a preliminary verdict has been pronounced. It is rather ironic that Elihu, the brash and verbose know-it-all, should condemn Job for being ignorant and garrulous.
Jesus.
Ignorant and what?
I don't think God gave Job a
Garrulous.
safe word.
What's garrulous? How do you spell that?
Wait. Garrulous. Aaron, I thought you spoke English.
Oh,
Come on,
that's a
Aaron.
new word for me.
Come on, Aaron.
Garrulous.
Garroless.
Ulous.
ULO.
Excessively talkative, apparently.
Yes.
Garrulous.
Yes. Verbose.
Yeah.
Yes.
Verbose.
Chatty.
Yes.
Loquacious.
Talkative.
Sesquipedalian.
Yes. 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 Oh, lest I forget. Where is it? Yes. You know what time it is, folks.
Yeah.
Guess who's talking about Jesus? Jesus. Guess who's talking about Jesus? It's the ancients, Christians again. Yes, it's the Christians. Yay. So, in the third part of Elihu's speech, the fathers notice three main aspects. In the first place, a certain understanding on his part of the ways of God's justice towards humans. In the second, a wrongful, reproachful, and accusatory attitude toward Job, which is constant throughout his speech. In the third, a certain prophetic value of his words that announce the advent and revelation of Christ and peace in the church. Though they speak against each other, in a sense, both the arguments of Job and Elihu bear a certain truth. That's according to Philip, the prophetic thing one. Oh, and he also says
even when the
that,
text and God himself says that he's wrong, it can still be a prophecy of our theology in advance, foreshadowing the Jesus. Cool story, bro.
Oh, and also, Philip also says that the phrase, if he should be taken back his spirit to himself and gather to himself his breath, all flesh would perish, is best interpreted in a Trinitarian manner through the spirit of prophecy. In light of the New Testament, teaching that God the Father assumed flesh in the Son, that he might gather to himself the spirit and breath of the afflicted world.
Okay. Okay. It's you'd be very hard pressed to find verses in the Bible that could be best explained by Trinitarianism.
It's. Have you ever seen really, really advanced yoga? It's like the mental equivalent of that, where they're contorting themselves so far, they're practically sticking their head up their own ass, and they're like, this is the easiest way to do it. I'm like, do what?
I thought you were talking about like hot yoga. When you said advanced yoga, like I've seen that.
Hot yoga.
You don't know what hot yoga is?
No, I was thinking of the contortions, not the sweat.
Yeah, contortion.
It's,
yeah.
Although
it's
I don't know
yoga.
how much.
It's like the joke in South Park, the stick of truth. You know what? You know what dire wolves are, right? They're wolves, only dire.
Only they're not actually wolves. They're,
Well, yes. Sometimes that's how adjectives work. So, like, yeah, hot yoga is just yoga, but hot.
It's South Park.
they are as distinct as foxes and more closely related to jackals.
Wait, is hot yoga the same thing as hot coffee?
No.
Oh.
Hot yoga is yoga done in an extra hot room so that you sweat a lot and you really hope to God that everyone there believes in
it is similar.
antiperspirant and deodorant and soap.
It's like yoga in the sauna.
So it's similar to hot coffee. Thanks.
if hot coffee was similar to a cold cup of water in a sauna.
Okay. Yes, I'm done. Move on. Nothing to see. Move along.
Okay. Isaac.
You want me to read 35?
Yes,
No.
please.
Cool. Okay. I kind of need to like look around my my light, so I'm gonna.
Only because you're British and British people make great narrators.
Oh, thank you. Elihu said in reply, "Do you think it just to say I am right against God? If you ask how it benefits you, what have I gained from not sinning? I shall give you a reply, you along with your friends. Behold the heavens and sea, look at the skies high above you. If you sin, what do you do to him? If your transgressions are many, how do you affect him? If you are righteous, what do you give him? What does he receive from your hand? Your wickedness affects men like yourself, your righteousness, mortals. Because of contention, the oppressed cry out. They shout because of the power of the great. But none says, where is my God, my maker, who gives strength in the night, who gives us more knowledge than the beasts of the earth, makes us wiser than the birds of the sky. Then they cry out, but he does not respond, because of the arrogance of evil men. Surely it is false that God does not listen, that Shaddai does not take note of it. Though you say you do not take note of it, the case is before him, so wait for him. But since now it does not seem so, he vents his anger, he does not realize that it may be long drawn out. Hence Job mouths empty words and piles up words without knowledge.
What version are you reading?
JPS.
The Tolkien version.
Damn! I didn't know the Battle of Helm's Deep was in there.
Now, the verse 11 was like, it was kind of giving me Gladriel. Oh, wiser than the birds of the sky. No.
Yes.
No, but all in all, it's like, what could you ever do to him? Nothing. Can't do anything to him. But he's done everything for you. Definitely not. No signs of an abusive relationship here.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I didn't. You know, you can't do anything for me, and I didn't even beat you today. And do I get a thank you? Do I? No.
And I
That's
didn't
how shitty you are.
Thanks, I guess.
Not me.
Yeah. I wanted to check something real quick.
I made you, and I can break you just as easily.
Oh, no.
Yeah, okay. God manages to get both the abusive parent and the abusive spouse vibe, which is impressive and disturbing.
Indeed.
There shouldn't be crossover. There should.
Okay. I'll start with verse 2. Hartley notes that although Job did not explicitly say that he was more righteous than God, he has defended his innocence and so vigorously accused God of treating him unjustly that he seems to have claimed for himself a righteousness that surpasses God's. Clines takes Elihu's charge as a denial that the issue of one's own vindication is the proper or the primary question about justice. Elihu argues that assertions like, I am more righteous than God, and questions like, what value is there for me, will not lead to an understanding of justice as right behavior. For him, the key question should be, what value for others is there in my actions?
Yeah, JPS translation is a bit...
not what he said at all.
Yeah, even less so.
That would be a good thing to say, but it's not what he said.
On verse 5, Habel notes that the heavens and the clouds are symbols of God's exalted abode and of God himself. He notes that look at and behold are pedagogical injunctions. The perspective wisdom student discerns truth through the observation of nature. Quote, just as the clouds are high above life on earth, so the domains of gods and mortals are quite separate and distinct. End quote. Hakham notes that an interpretation in Talmud Chagiga 12b takes Shachakim to be the third firmament based on the opinion that there are 7 firmaments and that it contains millstones that grind manna. He writes that this interpretation assumes that Shachakim is derived from the root shachak, to grind.
Wait, what verse are we at?
5.
5. Okay.
What?
Interesting.
Wait,
Yeah,
so
I mean
God-
there was that was a very common belief that there were 7 firmaments. And
yeah. Is it true that at one point it was 3?
well, the thing is, depending on,
Wait.
so there's some different interpretations. Some of them say that there are like 7 layers. Then some other ones say that there are 10. I think Islam actually kept that there are 7.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Jeez.
then
I think isn't that like Hellenistic or something? The 7 heavens. Because of like.
well, it's I know that interpretation is also in like Talmudic literature.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure where like the root of
They like the number 7.
but the they do, yeah. So there were like very early on when it comes to like layers of heaven, yes, there were 3 layers of heaven in like Babylonian Mesopotamian cosmology.
Really?
And there are also like 3 of each, right? There's 3 layers of heaven, 3 layers of earth, and then 3 layers of the underworld.
Oh, like the plates.
Yes.
Iconography.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's, yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Because I was thinking the 3 would be, the earth, above the earth, below the earth, kind of the heavens, the underworld, and the earth.
That is
as
a
only-
simplistic form, but each of those are broken down into
Yeah,
The 3 heavens is
obviously.
like the sky, where the stars are, and then where God is, or something like that.
yeah, it's
Right. He's always on the outermost, highest, most perfect king of the hill layer.
not always though. Sometimes he is, but not always.
But the lower 2 are physical.
Well, that's where he belongs. He can come
Right,
down and fuck with things if he wants to be a dick, but
Yeah. But they're obviously physical layers as opposed to like,
Right.
I guess a later idea of where they're like, oh, there must be a spiritual 7 heavens or something.
Right. Yeah. So they all believe in physical ones. In fact, they even gave like the rabbis even gave lengths to them, like widths to them. I forget exactly how big they said it was, but it's definitely in there. I remember covering it.
There is a thing about how like the Earth is like this small distance that they have, and then like 10 of that is the distance of the sky or something like silly. And yeah, I don't remember the exact numbers either. Yeah.
oh, we have a comment.
Yes.
And that is Jamie Wells 777 says, $5. I would have given my usual $10, but the economy sucks because of Donald Dump and his hooded idiots. But at least I have you all. Thank you so much for that. And
His
yeah,
horde of idiots.
Thank you, Jamie.
his horde of idiots. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't use the word minions anymore because it's
Sorry about
Because they're
bad
cute
word.
now.
Okay, on verse 6 and 7, Habel notes that earlier Elihu argued that he was immortal like Job in 33:6, but God is a being of a different order and located in a different world. He writes that Elihu argues a cosmology in which, quote, the earthly domain is a self-contained universe where human actions are restricted in their influence to fellow humans in the world, end quote. Habel notes that the confinement of human influence to earth is a mythic theme explored in the Babel and Fall narratives, also in Genesis 11:6 and 3:22. Clines, however, writes that Elihu everywhere sees God as actively involved with human affairs, and that his theme is that the justification of right behavior must be its effects in the world of humans, not its influence upon the divine, whom he represents as unharmed by human evil, unblessed by human goodness. Although PK argued that, quote, self-interest is accordingly not present in God as a disturbing influence to entice him from the path of justice, end quote, Clines argues that it is not the issue of God's justice, but of Job's that is on Elihu's agenda in this passage.
I also did find the section I was talking about here in Babylonian Talmud Hagigah 13a. Now is there not from the earth to the firmament a walking distance of 500 years, and the thickness of the firmament itself is a walking distance of 500 years, and a similar distance exists between each and every one of the firmaments, and above them, above all the firmaments, are the divine creatures.
Mhm.
That's what I was thinking of.
It's like
Yeah.
an onion.
It is very
no.
It is very interesting, however, the next passage about the feet of the divine creatures correspond in distance to all the firmaments. The ankles of the animals correspond to all of them. The shins of the animals correspond to all of them. The knees of the animals correspond to all of them. The thighs of the animals correspond to all of them.
Yeah, and the animals are like the chayot, the
Chayot
the angels with the 4 faces that Ezekiel sees.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
with
also
all the wings and the eyes
danger.
everywhere, and
well, those would be two different because they
It's about
they have the ones
the
with the wheels with eyes, right? But
Yeah.
they also the ophanim, but then they have the other ones which are just taken from Assyrian mythos. Like if you look if you try to draw out like what those things in Ezekiel 1 look like, the ones holding up the plate there, the holding up the heavens, they look exactly like the ones in the Assyrian reliefs. They have the wings, the legs, the bull legs. So it's I think it's pretty cool.
Are they depicted as bipedal rather than like you're talking about like the?
I think it depends. There's a couple of different creatures.
Four wings. I remember that 4 wings and then bull legs. And those are definitely in Assyrian reliefs.
Okay, yeah, they have both. Yeah. I thought you were talking about like the ones that they have in the British Museum. It's like a king's head, and then the body of a bull, and then like eagle wings.
Oh no! I know which ones you're talking about. No, those aren't it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I see pictures of like more like.
Those are the royal.
Yeah, you're talking. Oh, what was the name that nationality? They're like griffins, but they're somehow like winged bulls, but they have human heads.
Yeah, I forget what they're called.
They're called like the not Apatsu, the Apatsu. Oh my god, what they called?
It's interesting because you never see these things depicted like in animation or I mean, griffins, dragons of every kind imaginable. Griffins occasionally. Yeah, I've even seen what was it the owl horse Pegasus combo thing in Harry Potter, but you never see these things.
Yeah, they're called
even though they're like the oldest of all of that kind of shit.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And the owl things never even existed.
I think at some point they became too convoluted.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, the hippogriff? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the Lamasu is kind of like a
Lamasu, is that what they are?
Yeah, I think that's the plural.
That sounds about right.
Lamasu, Lamas. They're kind of like sphinxes, and you don't really see sphinxes come up that often in pop culture either. And
I at least have.
Yeah, that is not that common. Yeah.
But I don't think I've ever seen a Lamasu represented at all. So I guess we have no comments on this one. So we're just.
I do.
You can stop saying it. Tell me. Go ahead. I'll marry you. Okay.
Okay, 10 and 11. Habel writes that the characteristics of God outlined in these verses recall Elihu's earlier understanding of El in 33:14-30, as a deity who communicates his will indirectly through human experiences, and not by direct divine intervention. Elihu argues that God has provided orders of nature as vehicles for humans to attain wisdom. Compare Proverbs 6:6-8, 26:2, 30:15-23. Even the animals trust God to answer their needs. Nature is full of examples of creatures who suffer innocently because of physical upheavals or disaster, for which no one but God can be held responsible. Once, quote, the wisdom of Thus, quote, the wisdom of the animals is cited by both Job and Elihu to support their respective arguments about the character of God, end quote. And Clines comments, quote, what these verses show is how Elihu thinks of God. Though God is deeply involved in human affairs, he is not primarily a savior, but a creator, my maker, who is the author and sustainer of life. For example, with songs in the night and a teacher, compared 23:22, who is a teacher like him, whose blessings for humans are above all on the intellectual and cognitive plane. If you are in distress, he means to say, it will be better to understand that distress than merely to escape from it. The victims of oppression would find their prayers unanswered if they saw their suffering as a learning opportunity. First, for endurance, songs in the night, and secondly, for wisdom about its meaning as intended by God, teaches us and makes us wise. Simply to cry out in pain is to align oneself with the animals who lack understanding. Alternatively, if we adopt the translation by means of the beasts and birds, the meaning will be that since even animals cry to God when they are in need, compare Psalms 104:21, 1479, and Joel 120, humans should imitate them and not just cry out for sheer pain. So Pope and Habel. And finally, 14 and 15, Hartley comments, quote, difficulties in the Hebrew text make the interpretation of these two verses uncertain. Elihu believes that the principles he has articulated are surely true in Job's case. Although Job agonizes over the fact that he cannot see God, Elihu wants him to realize that, nonetheless, his case is before God. God has known about it from the beginning, but Job cannot compel God to take any specific course by his laments and complaints. Furthermore, Job must not be driven to take a presumptuous stance towards God because he is convinced that God's anger, quote, does not punish transgression, end quote. Job should not let such an error in judgment lead him astray. Elihu exhorts that the proper attitude that he should have is to wait for God. And about yes, Christians, yes. So Origin, I really liked Origin's one because a donkey can look to heaven with physical eyes, but only a human being with spiritual eyes can look to heaven in the proper sense by looking away from earth. Yeah, that's it.
Sure, Jan.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. It's funny you make this reference to the Brady Bunch, and I know Tomer's like not seen that. It's no idea what you're talking about.
You don't even need to have seen it. It's enough of a meme. He's chronically online enough. He should know about it.
Yeah, sure, Jen. I know. I didn't know that was the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that is 100% the Brady Bunch. But it's Marsha.
Yes. Okay. So then are we moving on to 37?
36.
Did I see? Yeah, okay. 36. That's what I turned the page to. I don't know why I said 37. Thus, Elihu continued and said, bear with me a little, and I will show you, for I have yet something to say on God's behalf. Don't you love that? That I have yet something to say. I will bring my knowledge from far away, my 17-year-old knowledge, and ascribe righteousness to my maker. For truly, my words are not false. One who is perfect in knowledge is with you.
Fuck this guy.
Yeah, what an arrogant POS.
Oh my God, he's a Theo bro.
Surely God is mighty and does not despise any. He is mighty in strength and of understanding. He does not keep the wicked alive, but gives the afflicted their right. He does not withdraw his eyes from the righteous, but with kings on the throne. He sets them forever, and they are exalted. And if they are bound in fetters and caught on the cords of affliction, then he declares to them their work and their transgressions, that they are behaving arrogantly. Yeah, they are behaving arrogantly. He opens their ears to instruction and commands that they return from iniquity. If they listen and serve him, they complete their days in prosperity and their years in pleasantness. But if they do not listen, they shall perish by the sword and die without knowledge. The godless in heart cherish anger. They do not cry for help when he binds them. They die in their youth, and it is their life and their life ends in shame. He delivers the affliction by their affliction and opens their ears by adversity. He also allured you out of distress into a broad place where there was no constraint, and what was set on your table was full of fatness. Full of fatness. But you are obsessed with the case
That was
of the
a
wicked.
good thing at the time.
Judgment and justice seize you. Beware that wrath does not entice you into scoffing, and do not let the greatness of the ransom turn you aside. Will your cry avail to keep you from distress, or will all the force of your strength? Do not long for the night when the peoples are cut off from their place. Beware. Do not turn to iniquity because of that which you have been tried by affliction. See, God is exalted in his power. Who is a teacher like him? Who has described for him his way? Or who can say, you have done wrong? Remember to extol his work
Me,
on
I
which
can.
remember to extol his work of which mortals have sung. All people have looked on it. Everyone watches it from far away. Surely God is great and we do not know him. The number of his years is unsearchable. For he draws up all drops of water, he distills into his mist in the rain, and which the skies pour down and drop upon mortals abundantly. Can anyone understand the spreading of the clouds, the thunderings of the pavilion? See, he scatters the lightning around him and covers the roots of the sea. For by these he governs people. He gives food in abundance. He covers his hands with the lightning and commands it to strike the mark. Its crashing tells about him. He is jealous with anger against iniquity.
So, a few things. One, obviously, a whole bunch of storm god imagery. And then I also want to point out that, like, he begins, Elihu as a character, he begins by showing up and going, listen, I was eavesdropping and I couldn't help but add my 2 cents in. But I don't think he was listening to anything Job actually said, because all of these things that Elihu is saying, that, the way that God acts is not proving true. Like, Job clearly sees a different set of things happening, and Elihu's like going, no, that can't happen. Therefore, it doesn't. Even though that's what Job is
that's the
complaining
religious mindset.
about.
Yeah, that is the Theobro religious mindset that says reality doesn't matter. Theology says this should happen. So that's what's happening. And obviously, you're just evil in ways we don't know about. I mean, that's what they do. That's genuinely what they do. The reality denial, you can modify your beliefs somewhat to, or you can just deny reality, because screw it, my beliefs are more important than what is actually demonstrably true. Sorry, those are your options.
Yeah. Okay, I'll start with verses 2 and 3. Habel writes that Elihu declares his intention to forge ahead with his lengthy defense of El's just governance by developing themes enunciated in chapters 33 through 35. His goal is to prove the creator of the cosmos innocent of the charges of injustice implied by Job. He notes that in the legal framework of Elihu's speeches, the idiom eten tzedek is not understood as an experience of praise, I ascribe righteousness, but in the forensic sense of I will prove in the right. He further writes, quote, creator, poel, and maker, ose, in 35:10, are found in wisdom contexts to refer to the creator who rules in accord with the moral order he has established in his cosmos, as we see in 5:9, 35:10, Proverbs 14:31, 16:4, and 22:2. In Proverbs 8, that order is the cosmic design of wisdom, who is introduced by God as the first and foremost of his primordial works or creations. The subsequent speech of Elihu attempts to relate El's justice to his control of this cosmic order. In the sapiential style of Solomon, 1 Kings 5, 9-14, Elihu asserts his intention to defend his creator by gleaning evidence from distant sources and so display the wise scope of his Solomon-like knowledge. On verse 4, Clines notes that many commentators take this sentence as indicating Elihu's immodesty. For example, Habel writes that in an attempt to vindicate God, Elihu falls into the trap of playing God. Piquet called it an, quote, extravagant self-praise, even for an Oriental, the more pitiful that the speeches themselves give the lie to his claim, end quote. And Anderson writes that Elihu, quote, is giving himself such a certificate of genius as if the brash young man is all unaware of its presumption, end quote. Yet Clines writes that these commentators never asked why the author, whose creature is Elihu is, would have wanted to portray such a ludicrous character. Does the author not have some sympathy for the ideas he puts in the mouth of Elihu? If he does not, why does it think it worth inventing him? He writes that by saying that his words are not false, Elihu assures Job of his honesty and integrity, rather than strictly of his accuracy. He takes shekel to meet deceit, rather than lie or falsehood, and that it is the opposite of reliable personal relations, rather than of objective truth. He also notes that the Hebrew term yada, know, includes also what we would call think or have an opinion. And so, quote, Elihu may not be more self-regarding than any of our contemporaries who say, I believe my opinions are sincere. On verses 5-7, Habel comments, quote, a significant contribution of Elihu's defense lies in his emphasis on El's courageous involvement, a corrective to the image of a detached deity presented in his previous speech in chapter 35. This defense may imply hidden challenges to El's potency, similar to those found in Canaanite mythology. Anath, for example, threatens to splatter El's hoary head with blood if she does not get her way. Job, however, yes.
I like her.
Yeah. Job, however, had challenged El's morality, not his power, the justice of his governance, rather than his capacity to act, as we see in 12:30-25. In his previous speech, Elihu contended that El was beyond the business of heeding the hypocritical cries of oppressed people like Job, as we see in 35:13. Now, in verse 7, he maintains that El's eagle eye is unwavering in its vigilance for the righteous who are afflicted. Job had complained bitterly that this celestial eye was that of an insidious spy surveying the earth for any excuse to torment or trap mortals, as we see in 7:8. Elihu responds that El does not bind or badger the afflicted righteous, compare 7:20 and 10:30-17, but exalts them to positions of honor, compare 5:11 and 1 Samuel 2:8.
Well, it might make sense to read that and pronounce it as insidious. We do enunciate the back end of that word so that it becomes insidious.
Insidious.
Yes. It doesn't sound appropriately evil if you don't enunciate it.
It's true.
We have Jamie Wells, 777, says he offers $5, thank you, and says, I would have given my usual... No, I read this already. Did somebody post this?
You did.
You did.
I don't know why that showed up again.
Daisy.
All right. Yep. All right. And where are we up to, Tomer?
Much. Yes, 8.
Okay. Then I had a question about this too. Oh, no, we're not up to that yet. No, go do continue.
Yes. On verse 8, Clines comments, quote, the second phase in the life story of these righteous folk is that after their elevation to places of prominence, they find themselves in fetters and cords, no doubt metaphorical or of affliction in general, though Delitzsch thinks the fetters are literal and the cords metaphorical, as with those imprisoned in misery and iron in Psalms 107:10. There is nothing very novel in the book of Job about the idea that suffering may be disciplinary. Eliphaz has already said so in 5:17 and compare Elihu in 33:16-22. What is different here is the affliction of those who have already been the beneficiaries of God's justice. For the righteousness, they have been elevated to power, and now they have overstepped the mark and have been brought low. It is not the story of Joseph that is being alluded to against Anderson, for Joseph is not said to have brought his imprisonment on himself.
No, though that is a good example of a story where the character does nothing wrong and still suffers horribly.
Okay. On 11 through 12, Hartley comments, quote, the errant righteous respond to God speaking in one of two ways. Either they willingly obey his words, or they stubbornly refuse to obey them. Some who are afflicted hear God speaking through their affliction. Welcoming the divine instructions, they humbly submit themselves to God. As they begin to serve Abad, God, a gracious change takes place in their lives. Their despair is turned to hope, since they know that they will complete their days in prosperity, Tov. That means God will richly bless their years with pleasant experiences, Ne'imim. Conversely, if these sufferers do not obey God's instructions, they will experience a premature death. A subtle play on the words in verses 11a and verse 12a underscores the consequences of these different responses to God's word. In verse 11a, obey, shama, and serve, abad, are used affirmatively, while in verse 12a, refusal to obey, lo shama, will be punished by crossing, aval, the river of death, shelach. To put it another way, they expire from lack of knowledge. The phrase lack of knowledge means that they do not faithfully obey God. Since they reject him, God withdraws his sustaining presence and they expire. On verse 13, Clines comments, quote, whereas the first colon of verse 13 apparently depicts the divine reaction to their unceasing wickedness, the second colon is more evidently one of the reasons why they attract the divine wrath, or perhaps even why they are called godless in the first place. It is that they do not cry out, shoah, PL, when God binds, asar them with affliction. The very same language of binding had been used in verse 8 of the experience of some of the righteous, viz., those who become arrogant when they have been raised to positions of importance by God. Here we are not dealing with righteous people at all, but that is no reason why the poet should not use the same term. It is strange, however, that the wicked should be faulted for not crying out in their suffering when Elihu has been at pains to explain that crying out of itself is not good enough for God. Merely to cry out, za'ak, without explicitly calling upon God, will ensure that God will not listen, in 35, 9 through 12. Should not the error of the godless here also be, not that they do not cry out, but that they do not also say, where is God our maker? Or some such words. It does seem an inconsistency, but it will be rash to blame Elihu. The difficulty may be entirely due to the corrupt textual state of these verses.
So God just likes to hear you beg, but you better beg right. And you better call his name when you get. Then maybe he'll let you up.
Damn, that's kind of hot.
Fuck. No, it's hot when I do it. I'm not killing your children and burning everything you have.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm telling you, I swear to God, the more I study this, I swear religion is just bad BDSM that is way out of control.
Cool. Okay, 16. Yeah, I agree. By the way.
Tell me I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong. Yes. So 16, the jaws of distress. The Masoretic text reads Pitzar. The meaning of this phrase is unclear. If read literally, the phrase reads from the mouth of narrowness. Compare Vulgate, the narrow mouth. The word tsar can also mean enemy or oppressor, as we see in 623, 69, and 1911, and so read the enemy's mouth, as we see in Septuagint, Theodotion, and Nachmanides. Habel took Pitzar to be a reference to Sheol and Mot. He notes that in a Canaanite mythology, Baal must descend through the mouth of Mot, death, to enter the depths of the underworld. Thus, Tsar is probably a poetic allusion to death as the adversary, or possibly to an earthly agent of death. Clines, however, writes that Elihu should not be suggesting that God is wanting to lure Job from the jaws of death, but rather is wanting Job to make up his mind about where his allegiance lies. Instead, he writes that the phrase is almost certainly corrupt, but notes some of the suggested emendations. 1. Read zur, starve, and thus has enticed you from the mouth of the starving, according to Guillaume. 2. Read mifratz, wealth, derived from paratz, breakthrough, in Genesis 30:43, and thus read wealth had enticed thee, according to Rowley and Gray. 3. Read mipit sariach, he will deliver you from the mouth of the tomb, according to Levek. And 4. Read tsar as tsara, distress, according to Dom, Tur-Sinai, and Hartley. On verses 18 and 19, Habel comments, quote, earlier Elihu had outlined a procedure whereby a penitent sinner might be delivered through the intervention of a celestial mediator who had a ransom, kofel, to offer the court of heaven, and so rescue the afflicted person from death, as we see in 33:23 through 24. Here, Elihu seems to be warning Job that no amount of earthly wealth can buy redemption in the face of the final adversary, or better, the final adversity, or better, the adversary, capital A, on verse 16. Riches are unacceptable as a ransom price in Job's case. That a ransom for life could be translated into money or possessions is evident from the law code of Exodus 30:12 and 13. Compare Exodus 21:30. The verb arach in verse 19 elsewhere in Job means prepare a legal case, as we've seen 13:18 and 23:4. The forensic context of this speech suggests that Elihu is rejecting the possibility that riches would serve as a ransom to help Job prepare or win his case when the adversary appears. Job has no other option but to accept Elihu's verdict and abandon his campaign for a civil trial. On verse 20, Clines comments, quote, this is a most difficult verse to make sense of in its context. Gordis explains persuasively that Elihu is
persuasively.
I knew this word, but my brain was like, nope, you don't know this word. Persuasively. Gordis explains persuasively that Elihu is warning Job, quote, not to hope for the shelter of night as do other evildoers, compare, for example, 24:30 through 17, because whole nations are destroyed by God overnight, compare 34:20 and 25. That is to say, no more than in his wealth can Job find refuge for the divine reproof in the shadows of night. For the night is a dangerous time for individuals and nations alike. It is not against Habel that Job is tempted to join forces with the dark forces of the night, whom he had earlier summoned to curse the day of his birth in 3:8. It is ironic that Elihu should imagine Job longing for the night, when Job himself knows so much of nights of misery or toil, amal, or emel, in 7:3. Nights that are too long and full only of wakefulness in 7:4, and nights that pierce his bones in 30:17. It cannot be that Elihu is warning Job not to long for death as Bud, for Elihu knows only of death as a punishment for wrongdoing, not as a blessed relief.
Yeah, that's very much a young man's perspective.
On 22 and 23, Habel writes that an ancient apologetic against speculation about the various roles and relative status of the gods may lie in the background of these verses. In Proverbs 8, wisdom is depicted as the lady associated with Yahweh from the beginning. His way, derech, before his works or creations, in Hebrew pa'alim, in Proverbs 8:22. In our passage, El's way is that his eternal destiny as creator, is not assigned by another deity, and no passes judgment on any work of creation. Moreover, El is his own counselor and needs no instruction from another divine being in the performance of his tasks as creator or ruler of the cosmos. Habel further writes, quote, the designation Moreh, teacher or counselor, is probably an allusion to the ancient Near Eastern mythological concept of a divine counselor who guides the creator God in his primordial labors. The term Moreh is rare in the Old Testament, but relatively common in post-biblical Hebrew and the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Septuagint renders the title ruler, but this may be an attempt to interpret the term rather than evidence of a different Hebrew original, according to Michel. Tur-Sinai claims the title refers to one who makes rulings in court as to the conduct of man. While Elihu elsewhere deals with this process of divine communication, as we see in 33:14 and 15, 35:11, and 36:9 and 10, this is the only occasion where he uses the root yari of God. The wider wisdom context of Job and the related wisdom terminology of verse 23 suggest that More is one who counsels or teaches wisdom. Compare 8:10, 12:7-8, and Proverbs 4:11. Lady Wisdom being the supreme example in Proverbs 8. Here, however, El is acclaimed as his own counselor, the incomparable, self-sufficient creator. On 24 and 25, Hartley comments, quote, Elihu exhorts Job to remember that he is to extol God's works. A mere man, he is to adopt an attitude of praise toward God, not a posture of challenge. He needs to sing the songs that people have sung, praising God's wondrous deeds. Job has revealed his works in order that all humanity might behold the vistas of nature with a sense of wonder and joy. People are overwhelmed before the splendor of God's creative deeds, even though they view them from a far distance. When Job remembers to praise God, he will leave off his complaint, then he will reap all the benefits of his suffering.
And where are you in this, Tomer? What verse?
28 now.
I'm sorry, what?
27 and 28.
Thank you. Now this reference, for he draws up the water and distills the mist and the rain, which the skies pour down and all that. That has been brought up by apologists to say that there's no way that people would have noticed wet things getting dry in the sun or the evaporation that you can sometimes see. There's no way that they could know that the water is going back up into the sky to become water again to rain back down. That had to be divine wisdom, because nobody's smart enough to know obvious things.
Well, I have a comment on this, actually. So, 27 and 28. Clines writes that although this description appears to be, quote, no more than a proto-scientific description of the formation of rain, end quote, it is also very probable that it served a more theological purpose. Elihu's theme may well be wisdom in the clouds. The God who devised the order of nature is humankind's great teacher in verse 22, and has built into the creation of the world lessons for the improvement of humans. Clines also notes that Dumb observed that whereas rain is here understood to be produced by evaporation of water from the earth, in the divine speeches, rain is thought to be stored in heavenly reservoirs, as we see in 38, 25 through 27, and 37 through 38. He inferred that the author of Elihu's speeches lived later than that of the divine speeches and was influenced by Greek science.
Or like, I don't know, it's just that like all this stuff is very storm god, right? Because like while you could go, oh, like look, that's science. It says that he scatters his lightning around him and covers the roots of the sea. But then it also goes on to say that he covers his hands with lightning and commands it to strike the mark. So like this is not like this is not a scientific text. This is, he is a storm god. He controls the storms.
Yeah. Where are you seeing like evaporation though?
He draws up the
Right.
drops.
Draws up the drops. Yeah, that's the argument.
I mean, that's one translation, right?
How would you read
I
it?
mean, the Hebrew is ki yegara nitfei mayim yazoku
Yeah.
matal le'edo. So
Does Yigara
Oh,
have
that
the-
explains
Yigara.
everything.
Okay, but
Yigara.
the verb used there, does that mean draw up, or does that mean to form or to
I mean,
emit?
gara, I think means withdraw, right? Ligroa, to withdraw something.
So something comes out of something.
I think so. I need to check.
Yeah. So JPS translates it as he forms the droplets of water. And Steinsaltz, I don't know what his translation is, but he has he emits drops of water. And then he does add on at the end of 28. Man cannot fully comprehend the greatness of God and his deeds. He cannot understand the secret of rainfall. This is kind of his explanation of the verse.
Secret. Funny, we've managed to understand it quite well by now. It's almost like we're capable of learning.
I'm saying
Oh,
it's
so we
possible
do-
that like the choice of saying draws up as opposed to brings out or he takes from his
Yeah,
storehouses, for
they're
example,
Yeah.
reaching
could-
the one specific phrasing sounds like evaporation. So
Yeah, I mean,
it could just that
Clines
makes more sense to the translators.
Clines notes that preferable is the translation draw up, as we see in RSV, NIV, Dorm, Hosha, Godis, and Habel, presumably from the water and earth into the clouds. It is not strictly drops that are drawn up, though the water vapor will become drops, but nataf may well refer to exudation as well as to form drops.
Right. So when you say preferable, that just means it's
Preferable.
what's the word? It's popular. It's used
I
in a
guess.
lot of
I mean,
translations.
it's used in translations and by other commentators.
Okay.
I'm
just saying,
but also
it's arguable whether the people who wrote this aren't necessarily talking about evaporation or not.
fair.
Yeah. Okay. On 31, finally, 31 through 33, Habel comments, quote, verse 31 is transposed by some scholars to follow verse 28 as NEB. The poetic technique of recapitulation and interplay of themes, however, permits the present order. The purpose of the storm deity in dispensing waters in verses 27 and 28 and manifesting his splendor to the depths of the sea in verse 30 involves both sustenance and control. In his role as judge and ruler, the storm deity employs his meteorological tools to express his anger. Compare Exodus 15:7 and 8 and Jeremiah 23:19. For Elihu, the mysterious manifestation of El as the Most High, the storm god of the heavens, affords ample reason for acknowledging him as the righteous, inscrutable Lord of the universe. The storm is not only a source of intellectual fascination for the wisdom student, but it can be interpreted as evidence of the just way El judges and governs his world.
When did we start to believe that gods must be just? Because they're not.
When they decided that a human was God, I guess.
Yeah, humans suck. Have you noticed them?
Yeah, but I mean, like, when you have a hero, you try and make them good. But when you have, like, most traditional stories, the gods don't need to be human. If that makes sense. I feel like they try to
I know
make
it's
God more human
personification
by
of
making
natural
him all good.
forces.
Yeah.
I don't.
Now Christians, yes. So, there is yes. So
Haven't we
Gregory
sprayed
thought
for
that there
those
is
yet?
no, because Gregory thought that there is that that Elihu is able to prophesy the conversion of the Gentiles here.
Of course.
Yes. About this is about 30b through 31. So, and he will also cover the hinges of the sea. From Elihu's voice, we hear that this will happen, but we see that through the agency of God, it has all happened already. The Almighty Lord, in fact, has covered the limits of the sea with glowing clouds, because through the fulminating miracles performed by his preachers, he has led to faith even the most extreme lands of the world. For by these he governs people to give food in abundance. By these words of his preachers, that is, by these drops of the cloud and by the lightning of miracles, God judges people. He calls to repentance their frightened hearts. Indeed, as soon as they hear the heavenly words, as soon as they see the wondrous works, they come back to the heart and, repenting of their past iniquities, fear the eternal chastisements. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's referring to. Yeah, I guess. Okay.
Okay, so we're
That's it.
moving on to 37.
Yes.
We finished 37, and then we can start next time at 38. Lawrence, is that appropriate?
Yes.
Yeah, that works because that's when we have God come in.
Like
Very
a
good.
dramatic bitch.
Right. Yes, exactly like a dramatic bitch.
Okay, Lilith, you want to read this one?
I would love to. Chapter 37. The Theobro continues.
The what is a Theobro? What are you thinking when you say that?
Yeah, Theobros are young conservative Christian men who mansplain religion and Christianity to everyone. It's sort of like a Jordan Peterson acolytes. That's what you're kind of the flavor you're going for.
Okay.
So like a
Yeah.
like a
Anyway,
theist
they're
version, like
they're ick.
a theist version of Phil Bros.
Yeah. They're really, really gross and condescending and creepy. And women do not like them, and they think that that's a character flaw on our part. Anyway, carrying on. At this my heart pounds and leaps from its place. Listen, listen to the roar of his voice, to the rumbling that comes from his mouth. He unleashes his lightning beneath the whole heaven and sends it to the ends of the earth. After that comes the sound of his roar. He thunders with his majestic voice. This guy has a boner for God. When his voice resounds, he holds nothing back. God's voice thunders in marvelous ways. He does great things beyond our understanding. He says to the snow, fall on the earth, and to the rain shower, be a mighty downpour, so that all men he has made may know his work. He stops every man from his labor. The animals take cover. They remain in their dens. The tempest comes out from its chamber. The cold from the driving winds. The breath of God produces ice, for he is Kryptonian, and the broad waters become frozen. He
He is
loads the
Kryptonian?
clouds
What?
with moisture. Well, he breathes ice. I mean, that's what Superman does. He loads the clouds with moisture. He scatters his lightning through them. At his direction, they swirl around over the face of the whole earth to do whatever he commands them. He brings the clouds to punish men or to water his earth and show his love. Listen to this, Job. Stop and consider God's wonders. Do you know how God controls the clouds and makes his lightning flash? Do you know how the clouds hang poised, those wonders of him who is perfect in knowledge? You who swelter in your clothes when the land lies hushed under the south wind, can you join him in spreading out the skies hard as a mirror of cast bronze? Which it isn't at all, but who cares? Tell us what we should say to him. We cannot draw up our case because of our darkness. Should he be told that I want to speak? Would any man ask to be swallowed up? Now no one can look at the sun, bright as it is in the skies after the wind has swept them clean out of the north. He comes in golden splendor. God comes in awesome majesty. The Almighty is beyond our reach and exalted in power, in his justice and great righteousness. He does not oppress. Therefore men revere him, for he does not have regard. For does he not have regard for all the wise in heart?
So there are a few things here that I wanted to know. So back onto the science topic. If you're like, if they want to make the argument that the authors here got some special scientific knowledge for, evaporation, how are they arguing about like verse 16 where it's like, do you know the balancings of the clouds? Guessing, I'm guessing he means by that how they stay in the sky. If that's the case, if that is what the author means by that, then where's the scientific explanation for that? Oh, I guess he just forgot to give you that one. But I did want to note a few other things here. In verse 18, this one I like a lot because I'm probably going to mispronounce it. Tarkiya, right? The spreading out there.
Yeah.
Which verse?
Talkia. Yes. Talkia. Yes.
Yeah. The spreading out of the skies.
Yes.
So because in this verse it's likened to being hard as a molten mirror, the idea that the rakia, because it's the same root there, is like a solid firmament. Rakia is the word for firmament. So the idea that the rakia is solid, that the firmament is in fact a solid structure, is supported by the fact that it's being like the spreading out, using the same word there, of the skies is likened to a molten mirror, like you're hammering out a like a shield or something. That's the idea here. And then what else was there? This is something that I'm sure Tomer might have some more notes on this, but I want to look into this more. On verse 22 here, out of the north comes golden splendor, around God is awesome majesty. So is that Tzafon there?
Mitzafon Zahav, yes.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah. So there's a lot to talk about there. That of course being the original name for the divine mountain in Canaanite mythology. We talked about that the other week.
Are you suggesting then that the sky is not hard like a molten mirror?
It is something I heard once, perhaps in a science class.
There is.
Well, good. I can stop worrying about it falling then.
So there is a note here by Clines regarding the Tzafon. He writes that there is a lot of evidence in the Old Testament that the north was viewed as the dwelling place of God.
Yeah.
The chariot in Ezekiel's vision came out of the north in 1:4. The mount of assembly of God and the heavenly beings is, according to Isaiah 14:13, in the recesses of the north. The same phrase is used in Psalms 48:2, which is 3, where Zion, as the city of the great king, is said to be in the far north, which can only be true by mythological, not geographical standards. But there is not necessarily any reference here to the dwelling of God. The north may mean no more than the highest heavens, as it apparently does in 26:7. The golden globe being nothing more mysterious than the sun itself.
So that's why
I get that, but there's also the because we'd have to struggle with, God, what was it? Was it Joel? I think it's in Joel, where the is it Joel 2? Oh man, I totally forgot. I have so many notes here. I think it was in Joel 2 where you have Yahweh's armies coming down, but they're said to be in darkness.
Got a couple of comments here, so I'm going to read them. My Unfinished Journey says, "Hail Aaron and Panel, and hail the inscrutable Lord of the universe." Let's just see if he's scrutable or not. Then My Unfinished Sock says, "Don't be inscrutable. Like and share the stream instead." And then Rossinated Gold. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Offers $5. Gold. What's that?
Is that a reference to the horse Rocinante from Don Quixote? Because I actually read Don Quixote.
Okay.
You.
Rocinante Gold. Okay. $5. Says, our Aaron Ra right now, made by Jim Bob, is critiquing one of your vids. His audience is all, this guy can't be right about anything. Just look at him.
I don't know who that is, nor do I care.
It's good to know he has such intelligent and well-rounded arguments.
This is Quixote's horse. Yeah. Did you know that actually the true pronunciation of the novel is Don Quixote, because the X is old Catalonian. So
it might be Don Quixote's horse, but it's also the spaceship from The Expanse.
Yeah, of course.
So that
interesting thing about Don Quixote.
Yes.
Yeah, a friend of mine was reading she got an image of the original pages. So she's like reading the way it was originally written, not translated, not adapted. And she said that it was not Spanish, but neither is it Latin. It's like it's a transitional.
It's Old Catalonian. Catalonian. But
Ah,
yeah. The thing is, because Don Quixote says what he says in Old Catalonian, then the people around him like what are you saying? It's like the effect is like you have a person speaking like Middle English in front of people who speak like modern English. What are they talking about?
Yeah.
ah.
So
Yeah.
she described it as being like a transitional species when we talk about the analogy of biological evolution being similar to the way, analogous to the way that that languages evolve. So you've got something that is clearly Latin. We can still say it's a Latin language, though it's obviously not Latin itself. But neither is it Spanish yet.
True.
There's also like south of France. There's like another language that is kind of between French and Spanish.
Huh.
I think it's called like Occitan or something like that,
Catalanian?
or Occitan.
Occitanian.
Occitan,
Occitanian. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't
Okay.
sure if it's Occitan or Occitan. Yeah, but it's like another one of those like Latin languages that are.
Interesting. I also
Okay.
find it interesting that I was working with this guy who he spoke Italian, among other languages, English, Arabic, Somalian, and I don't know why he chose to speak Italian. I asked him why he didn't study Spanish, and he says, "Where does anybody speak Spanish?" He thought Italian would be more popular than Spanish, which I thought was laughable. You've got practically a whole
In
continent that speaks Spanish.
in North America?
Isn't it the
In
third
South
most
America,
spoken language in the world?
yeah, it's yeah, but even look at South America. I was like, what country speaks
Yeah.
Spanish? Well, all of these except for that one.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
That
I
speaks
mean,
Portuguese,
du-
which is more
I mean,
closely
then also
related to
that,
Spanish than
and
Italian.
then you get like Spanish dialects are now almost like
But as it turned
they're
out,
going
he
to
didn't
become.
need to speak Spanish because we're working in a convenience store with this guy, and there would be like Mexican construction workers would come in, and they would order in Spanish, and he would reply in Italian, and they're having somehow a two-way conversation. I was just impressed that you could do that.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll start with verses 1 and 2. Habel comments, quote, Elihu interprets his interpretation of the storms of El with an outburst of empathy. Like Jeremiah, who experienced the devastating forces of war deep within his being in Jeremiah 4:19, Elihu feels his heart quake, chagad, as the rumbling of El's voice at the rumbling of El's voice in verse 1. The emphatic listen, listen reflects his sense of amazement at the force of El's thunderous presence in verse 2. Thunder is frequently interpreted as the voice of the deity in world and tribal religions. In Ugaritic mythology, thunder is the voice of Baal, and in the Old Testament, the voice of Yahweh, as was in Psalms 18:14, which is 13, 29, 3-9, and Exodus 19:18. The rumble, loges, and the growling, hege, of El extend the anthropomorphic imagery. Job had also experienced loges, but as turmoil and trouble in 326, not as a wondrous response of faith. Now Elihu calls his hearers to stand in awe of the rumble, growl, and roar of his God. Compare 36, 24, and 25. On verse 3, Clines writes that verse 3 views how this thunderstorm dominates the whole sky. He notes that Strahn wrote that a local thunderstorm was believed to be universal. Clines adds that the concept of the corners of the earth derives from thinking of the earth's surface as a cloth, a garment, or perhaps a carpet, as was seen 38:13, Isaiah 11:12, 24:16, and Ezekiel 7:2.
We have heard that idea of the god essentially throwing his cloak over the firmament for night, and that the stars were little holes in the cloak whereby the light of the sky would shine through. Although I don't know how literally anyone ever took that imagery.
I have the impression that nobody took the Mithras thing literally, and that when these legends were written, I'm convinced that they weren't meant to be taken literally. It was just
Oh,
for,
I
like,
don't think they were
poetic
either.
language.
Yeah, like
They had the
Narcissus turning
sense
into a
to speak.
flower, and also like isn't there like a bunch of stories about like the constellations? Like the humans know
Mhm.
that they invented the constellation when they make
Yeah.
a story about it, right? They
And I
know
remember
that they're not.
hearing,
This is not what actually happened.
I heard some scholars said that it's not that we are smart enough to understand what these people wrote literally. It's that they were smart enough to understand that they wrote it poetically, and we're stupid enough to read it literally, something like that.
Yeah,
I was thinking of the same one. Yeah, that is a quote I've heard.
Like when it comes to like constellations, a lot of that stuff started as like for didactic reasons, because they wanted to teach people something. Like if you want to remember what's where, give like a story to them.
Right.
Okay, on 5 through 7, Habel comments, quote, Elihu does not remain standing in awe of El's thunder. He interprets it as significant evidence in his defense of El. The voice of El is more than thunder. It is the source of meteorological marvels which, though incomprehensible, are evidence of his wondrous ways with human beings. The wonders and marvels of El, which are elsewhere viewed as general expressions of his creative prowess in 5:9 and 9:10, are specifically associated by Elihu with the operation of his cosmic voice, Kol. El not only makes Asi, Ein Sin Yud marvels in 5:9, he thunders them. His voice even commissions the snow to descend in verse 6. The forces of nature are not fixed to an automatic cycle, but operate at the direct command of El. Compare 38, 34 through 35. Torrential rain, Geshem Matar, is linked with theophanies of Israel's God, as was in Psalms 68:10 or 9, Judges 5:4 and 5, and 1 Kings 18:41 through 45. Those storms, rather than heavy rain, as such, are more common signals of his advent. Elihu interprets torrential rain as visible evidence of El's testimony to human beings. Previously, Elihu had identified warnings that human beings experience in dreams as the signature of El, the imprint of his seal, Hakham, in 33:16. The same signature is to be recognized in the heavy winter rains that drive the beasts of the field into their lairs, in verse 8. On verse 8, Clines comments, it is a nice touch that the animals too are depicted as locked up in their dwellings by the storm. It is not their winter hibernation against Rowley. Their hand or activity also is sealed up, though verse 7 thinks only of the humans' cessation from their normal activity. The animals have no idea why they cannot go out hunting for food. Some animals adapt to the cold by huddling together and keeping still to conserve energy. Humans, on the other hand, are supposed to be reflecting on the significance of their enforced idleness for what God may be teaching them through it. Elihu would see it as another example of God, quote, teaching us more than the beasts of the earth, making us wiser than the birds of the heavens, end quote, in 35:11. And yet human comprehension too has its limits, as these very verses underline. The wonders and great things that God does, such as the direction of these meteorological phenomena, are things that we cannot know, in verse 5. On verses 9 and 10, Hartley comments, quote, as people and animals seek cover, the tempest comes from its chambers to vent its full fury across the landscape. According to ancient belief, the various winds were stored in chambers in the heavens. Whenever God willed, he opened the doors to the appropriate chambers and let out those winds to blow on the earth. In the appropriate season, he sent the scattering winds, which blow out of the north, to chill the earth and its inhabitants. These winds bring the cold, driving rain. The temperature turns so cold that there is frost on the ground, and an expanse of water freezes over. Figuratively, it can be said that God breathes out ice. Compare Psalms 147:17.
So I don't know why it is that the apologists who brag so much about the drops of water being drawn up and well, this is ancient text describing the hydrological cycle that they couldn't have possibly understood without God's help. Yet they never bring up these chambers with these doors that keep the wind on the other side.
Yeah,
or the brass firmament. Or
the next
any of
chapter
the
is gonna have
other.
even more stupid.
Oh yeah. God comes in out of the storm, apparently, which is strange because there's no indication in the text that there is actually a storm. Like Elihu talks
Yeah.
about a storm. he talks about storms, but they're talking about natural phenomenon. I
Right.
don't.
And also, it's like you could like, oh, maybe Elihu is still talking and he's saying that God is gonna come out the storm and ask you this, but then God is
Or maybe he's like, look, a
castigating
storm is
Elihu.
coming. This is what it means.
Well,
Yeah.
God does come out of the storm, though. 38:1.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I guess we need to. We're setting up the spoilers, people. Not the spoilers. The teasers.
Sorry, spoiler for this this very old book. Yeah, in 38:1, yeah, the Lord answered Job out of
I imagine
the
most people
whirlwind,
haven't read the whole
which is
Job.
Sarah, right? So that would be like the same word that's used for like the storms.
Yeah, Sa'ara.
Sarah.
Okay.
Actually, in chapter 38, verse 1, God comes out from the Sarah.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what he said. Yeah. Although it's written funny, right?
I mean, yeah, Manhasara, but that's the Kere.
Yeah.
You have the Kere and the Ketiv. No, the Ketiv is the Manhasara. But yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, it's written as one word, but then
yes,
read as two words. Yeah.
Okay. On 11,
it's actually written as one word, but even the final nun in min is written as a small nun.
Yeah, we'll get to that. On 11 through 13, Habel comments, quote, "The clouds of heaven are evidence of El's strategy on earth. He controls their moisture content, uses them as launching points for his lightning, and manipulates them to execute his plans. Elihu's interpretation of these natural phenomena focuses on the design of El as creator, Poel, in 36:3, achieving, Pa'al, in verse 12, what he has explicitly commanded. Every fluctuation of movement in the clouds, 12a, is a testimony to El's guidance, Takhbulot. If, as McCain suggests, this wisdom term refers to navigational guidance or knowing the ropes as a counselor, compare Proverbs 1:5, 11:14, and 24:6, the image is that of El as a cosmic navigator guiding the clouds like ships or chariots on their appointed courses across the sky. For the clouds as chariots under God's control, see Psalms 104:3. On verse 15, Clines writes that what Job does not know, and what Elihu ironically questions him about, is not the science of meteorology, but, quote, the divine disposition of the forces of nature, i.e., how God arranges them, or better, with a small emendation, arranges his works, end quote. While we have heard a lot about lightning already, the uncanny marvel about it that has not been mentioned is that there is no predicting it. No human can know when an electrical storm will suddenly develop in the cloud. He further writes, quote, "It is true that the verb yafa, hif'il, shine out, is a typical term within a description of a theophany or divine self-revelation. As we see in Deuteronomy 33:2, Psalms 52:81, which is 2, and 94:1. Ravasi, among others, thinks this a sign that we are dealing here with more than an atmospheric phenomena. But it has been used in Job twice in the physical sense. At 3:4, where no light should shine on the day of Job's birth, and at 10:22, where the light that shines in the underworld is as darkness. In the present context, where the natural order is foregrounded, it is unthinkable that it should not refer to some kind of earthly light. It is conceivable that Elihu refers to the sun shining through the clouds, but the Hebrew has makes his cloud shine light, which suggests rather the lightning, as all light means at 36:32 and 37:3. On verse 16, Habel comments, quote, "These incomprehensible wonders are specifically called marvels of a perfect mind," in Hebrew, temim de'im. The latter idiom does not refer to El's omniscience, but to his capacity to comprehend and hence operate the meteorological mysteries of the cosmos. Elihu rather pompously claimed a similar mental capacity to argue his case as one perfect in reasoning, temim deot, against Job in 36:4. The rendering perfect mind is designed to capture this nuance of meaning. Job may have been designated tam, blameless, in 1:1, and claimed integrity, tom, in 27:5, as the innocent party. But Elihu seems to demand a perfect, tamim, understanding of El's governance if Job is to be given credence. Job is challenged, therefore, to answer impossible questions intended to demonstrate his capacity to match El's comprehension of the marvels of the cosmos.
I notice, Lawrence has a pretty kitty. Oh, look at the love. That is such a satisfied cat. The squinting, happy, happy cat. But I notice this a lot in internet believers. There's that defensive, oh yeah, well, can you explain this? Can you explain this? Can you explain this? I'm sure Aaron, you get this more than anyone else because you deal in evolution. And at least with that, there's some reason to be asking questions about the nature of the universe. But the entire premise that, like, unless you know everything, how dare you ask questions is just absurd and cancerous. I understand we've all, if you had a kid, you gotta be like, sometimes you just have to take my word for this one if you can't explain everything to them. But the idea that, especially in an urgent situation, but the idea that we should never be able to question, we should never, because God is just so superior. No, that's complete bullshit. I can explain things to my nephew that he doesn't like in an age appropriate manner, and he can at least partially understand. Why should it be different with God?
Yeah. Also, Tomer, at the start you said that no one can predict an electrical storm in the cloud. I have an app for that. That helps me. It helps me because this week we had the Northern Lights twice, and because of the app, I was able to go outside and see them.
Oh, I wish I could. Been chasing those things forever.
Just mentioned this to annoy Arn. You need to move to the Netherlands, Arn. Then you can finally see the Northern Lights.
Yeah, they were
weird.
It was a couple of days ago when you had them in the Netherlands. It was predicted that we might be able to see them here too. And my wife wanted to do, as we've done so many times before, drive out and drive north, a couple of hours to some dark place and see what we can see. However, the idea was thwarted when she realized that we're looking at overcast skies over the, our part of the state. So there wouldn't be any point in doing it. But we have driven all the way into Oklahoma, just trying to see them whenever it's predicted that they might appear. And then we get pictures from other people, even in places where we went to go, the specific place. There was somebody there 15 minutes earlier, sent this picture. We get there, it's gone.
Well,
it's been very frustrating.
As I said, move to the Netherlands, and then there will be a time when you can say to the people that you saw the light. Yeah. Just saying.
That's not exactly why I would move to the Netherlands if I would. It has been one of our suggested departure locations.
I think there's many reasons you might wish to move to the Netherlands. And hanging out and drinking with Peter is only one of them.
Yep, it would be.
Okay, on verse 18, Clines comments, quote, "The picture here is typical of Hebrew cosmology. The sky is viewed as a solid but thin sheet of beaten metal, a firmament, rakia, as in Genesis 1:7. Above it are storehouses for the rain, snow, and hail, also 38:22, that descend to the earth through the windows of heaven, Genesis 7:11. In the firmament are fixed the sun, moon, and stars, Genesis 1:14, 15, and 17, so we can read of the shining of the firmament in Daniel 12:3. The beating out of the firmament is most likely conceived as an act at creation, though most apparently envisage it here as a daily task of God's. The imperfect verb tarkia may suggest repeated action, but it could equally well be a preterite of a single past action, which Job naturally is incapable of cooperating in. Metals are several times said to be beaten out or hammered out, raka, as we see in Exodus 39:3, Isaiah 40:19, Jeremiah 10:9, Numbers 13:38 through 39, which is 17:3 through 4. Metaphorically, the earth, viewed as a flat disk, is elsewhere spoken of as having been hammered out at creation, in parallel to the spreading out nata of the sky, presumably like a curtain or tent, compare 126:7. At Isaiah 42:5, 44:24, Psalms 1366. It is here the sky that is hammered out. Fogel, however, thinks it must be the clouds, since only they can be hammered out afresh from day to day. But it is hard to see how the clouds can be hard as a metal mirror.
I want you to send, please, Tomer, copy that entire commentary and its source and email that to me.
Sure, I'll do it.
Thank you.
Okay,
Because who was it that said that?
Clines.
Okay. That is interesting that a theologian, right? That Clines is a theologian, is he?
I don't think he is a theologian.
No, Clines is like an actual scholar.
Yes. David J. Clines, yes.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for that bit of condescension.
Yeah.
It was accurate.
Yeah.
It's accurate. Yeah.
Okay. 19 through 20, Habel comments, quote, Elihu, having concluded his defense of El, resumes his role as arbiter and adopts the appropriate forensic language. Job had demanded a hearing in which Shaddai presented his charges or answered Job's allegations, as we see in 31, 35 to 37. But since there was no human arbiter in 32:12, and since it was considered improper for El to appear before human beings in litigation, as in 34:23, Elihu had accepted the task of judging Job's case. All his arguments, in fact, had been delivered in defense of El. Now, with bitter sarcasm, he challenges Job to educate the court in the rhetoric necessary to prepare Job's case before El. The we in verse 19 and the I in verse 20 of Elihu's speech are clearly ironic. He has given no indication to date that he is willing to be Job's advocate before God. Elihu contends, moreover, that even if he knew what to say, there is no way of communicating with El in person. Compare verse 23. He is outside the jurisdiction of an earthly court. Anyway, as Elihu, Job is a confused, literally consumed mortal who does not know what he is saying.
Well, it's good they recognize that in the critic, but not in themselves.
That is special. Just so special.
On 21 and 22, Hartley comments, quote, A wind comes up sweeping the skies of the rain clouds. The sun shines brightly in the clear sky. As the rays of the setting sun play on the clouds gathering in the north, the sky lights up with a brilliant display of colors. The new storm gathering in the north forebodes God's majestic appearance. Intertwining with the terms the north and the storm, both symbolic of a theophany, Elihu sees that God is about to appear from the glorious sunset. God, the sovereign Lord, is clothed in awesome majesty. The word awesome, nora, emphasizes the terror that a display of the divine power arouses in earthly creatures, and the word majesty, hod, represents the splendor that attends the holiness of God. On verse 23, Habel notes that Elihu draws together those characteristics of Shaddai which he had sought to defend, his might, justice, and his righteousness or innocence in the case at hand. But as Elihu demonstrated in chapter 35, this Shaddai is beyond human reach. He is the transcendent one who cannot be found by searching the extremities of the earth, as we see in 11, 7 through 9, and 23, 8 and 9. And he does not answer the complaints or charges of human beings like Job. Habel further writes, quote, This final point is pivotal to Elihu's argument. Job had explicitly summoned Shaddai to answer Ani, his complaint, in 31:35, and appear before a civil court. Elihu explains in detail that El only answers indirectly through dreams and affliction, as we see in 33:12 forward. There is no set time when he appears in litigation with human beings in 34:23. He does not answer Ani, formal complaints of people like Job, 35:13 and 14. Elihu has himself assumed the role of the arbiter who answers Job in 32:17 and 33:12, and argues the defense of El. Elihu's final word, therefore, is a direct response to Job's summons up for Shaddai to answer in 31:35. Shaddai will not answer Job's summons. Ironically, the response of Yahweh from the whirlwind pronounces a verdict on Elihu's position without a word being spoken directly to Elihu. Then Yahweh answered Job in 31:1. 38:1, sorry. And finally, on 24, Clines comments, quote, "The fear of God does not refer, as many think, to a religious attitude or to a sense of reverence. For the term fear denotes nothing other than the emotion of fear. Terrian rightly remarks that, quote, it would be a grave error to soften the meaning of the expression fear of the Lord and to ignore its central element of mysterium tremendum. The fear of the Lord is not merely to be equated with reverence, piety, or religion, because it is impossible today to reevaluate and again charge these terms with their ancient, but now largely lost, connotations of awesomeness." End quote. At the end of the day, Elihu shows himself deeply inconfident of human capacity if he concludes that fear is the appropriate human attitude in the presence of God.
The fear of the Lord, as the beginning of wisdom, I won't say it's not fear, but it is more complicated. I got a lot of excuses about how it was about respect, but if you've ever seen a truly powerful force of nature and been close enough to it to know that your continued existence is not your decision at this moment, there is a kind of fear in that, but also a deep awe and respect. If you've ever been on the sea, I mean, sailors are in love with the sea and also fear her because that bitch will fuck you up. It's there are awesome powers in the universe, and that sense of awe and your own smallness and the fact that, wow, like I really couldn't do anything if this turned right now, and that, natural forces sometimes do that. It's excitement too. There's appeal. I mean, storm chasers. You're talking about chasing the aurora borealis, but what about the people who run around chasing tornadoes? It's an absolute shot of adrenaline. I hope they respect. If they don't respect the storm, they don't last long. Let's put it that way. But yeah, I think that's the closest we could have in the modern age to a kind of a reverent fear, where you realize this is just
I don't
this is
like the poisoning of the well thing, that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. They're just trying to say you have to believe what I believe or you're not even intelligent.
it, and that is how it's used by theobros now.
Yeah.
I think I'm trying to give credit to the original authors for a more nuanced understanding of awe and power of nature and personifying that in gods, which is how we got gods, which at least there is some genuine depth and humanity in that sentiment, not in the dude bro in the comments who's going, "You don't fear God, so you're stupid."
I noticed somebody in the comments says, "Why would God need slaves? Why do people need to do God's work?"
Yeah.
Maybe
Okay,
he's just
so
a lazy bitch.
for the Christians, yes. So the sixth and final part of Elihu's speech is most interpreted by the fathers under a favorable light. They notice how he condemns human iniquity, according to Julian, and how he invites humankind to repentance and humility through the thunder of punishment and the observation of nature, according to Ishodad, Gregory, and Chrysostom. They also underline how his words have a prophetic meaning and announce the persecutions of the Jews and the Gentiles, as well as the preaching and spreading of the gospel, according to Gregory.
Of course, they have a prophetic meaning. It's being read by a Christian. The Jews don't really spend a lot of time on prophecy, I note, by comparison.
I think they already kind of learned. Also, when the Christians
Most
are
of the
constantly saying,
prophecies,
"Look, they prophesied us beating you. See, we're right."
yeah, I mean,
You get a
I
bit
mean,
of a
either the prophecy
bad
is
taste.
like it's said in the Bible and then fulfilled later on in the Bible, or it's doesn't come true, so they ignore it, or it's gonna happen in the future. So like, it's not like Christianity where it's like, look, all these things that were fulfilled and are important. Yeah.
I think though Jews do sometimes get on that same, like, because the evangelical end times Christians doing like the rapture thing and the prophecies, every 5 minutes there's a different antichrist and a different new world order and a different whatever the fuck they're scared of this week, barcodes, 5G, imprinted something or other. They hype that and they try and read into it a narrative that they find interesting and would somehow make them the important ones in history. But I think there are Jewish sects that have done something similar, though probably not as kooky, like the Menachem Schneerson group.
Chabad.
Or like,
yes.
Yeah.
Chabad.
My background. Yeah.
Yes.
But didn't they like do some of that, although not at a sort of corporate level of? So it wasn't it. Did they read into certain prophecies a little bit, or
I don't know about
was anything prophesying the now town?
Like I don't remember thinking of like, oh, here is a prophecy about like what the end, how God, the Messiah is going to come.
Oh, not end time specifically, but was anything intended to prophesy Menachem Schneerson? I can't pronounce his last name. I'm sorry.
Schneerson.
You can say Schneerson or you can say Schneerson, if that's easier.
Schneerson. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I don't remember any like prophecies being used, but it's more like, Maimonides has like a list of characteristics of or what a Messiah is supposed to do and stuff like that, and they thought that that's what he was doing. He was the leader of the generation. He was bringing people closer to God. He was, and then when he died, they kind of had to invent, kind of like Christianity probably. They kind of had to invent this like excuse of like, well, actually, he's dead, but not really, and therefore
occultation, just like the that
he's
the
hidden,
last, whatever. Yes.
So it's like, and they're like if you look at this, if you according to Maimonides, blah 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 blah, a Messiah could come from the dead, and it's like
the
not
the
necessarily
night
saying that he is
of
the
the
Messiah
dead.
already,
Well, they're dead, but not really.
Because in Judaism, like the end, like then is it before the Messiah comes or during the time of the Messiah, everyone comes back to life, or the righteous will come back to life first, or whatever. Like people's bodies will move around on the ground and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think there is this idea that the Messiah could be one of the dead people that come back to life.
That was an idea,
which is a very minority position, but like the messianic is not the right word.
Right. That was one of that was at least one of the interpretations for Jesus, that he was like the first one, the first righteous one to come back.
The firstborn of the resurrection, first fruits of the resurrection. Pardon.
Yeah, they're very much relying on like technically this is it doesn't say that this can't be how it happens. So
he was the first zombie.
The one true lich.
I should have
Jojo Freelancer says, I believe the Bible has different books in different kinds of Hebrew and genre. Different kinds of Hebrew and genres. Okay, what are your views on the Hebrew that was used for Job, and are there words from other languages?
I mean, if you're asking
Lauren,
if there are loan words, yeah.
Yes.
And then there's, of course, the differences between late biblical Hebrew and early biblical Hebrew.
Yeah.
Yes.
And is there a mix in here, or is this one composition?
Of course, there is a mix.
Yeah, it's very to my understanding, it's very archaized, so it looks like it's older, but because of the loan words that couldn't have gotten into the language until later, we know that it is from a later period and not old. So no matter how old they wanted it to look, the fact that they still use those loan words, like I think specifically Persian loan words, because of that, it had to come from after Persian influence.
Yeah, it's like Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, or Star Wars by William Shakespeare, or kind of the opposite of you haven't really appreciated Star Wars or Shakespeare until you've heard it in the original Klingon. You're playing with memes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole book written in
Saga before
Aramaic.
that.
There's a bit of Aramaic, like sections in other books, and then you have you can have Aramaic words,
Bits of
Babylonian words,
Aramaic in
Akkadian.
other books. Now, are we
Yeah,
again
which
talking
book
about?
has like an Aramaic section?
Ezra.
Ezra.
Right.
Oh yeah, the letter. Right.
Yeah.
Remember we read the letter in Ezra, the letter from the king.
Yeah.
It was written in Aramaic. Yeah.
So then somebody writes the original thing, and then other people come in and embellish it or enhance it later on.
Well, not quite. For that specific example, the person who was writing the text itself included a previous document.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
In that instance, but there are instances like what I just said.
I'm not sure if they. Oh wait, there's the part in Daniel, right? That's in Aramaic.
Yeah, there. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, but the whole Daniel's Aramaic.
No, only part of it is.
Oh, but like whole chapters, right?
Right. Yeah. A big chunk of it is. Yeah. But
yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
So that's interesting. You've got chapters of a book, and the chapters are written by different people at different times.
Oh, yes. Which wasn't unusual. The books of the prophets were not thought to be written by the prophets initially. That was understood that it was, their disciples would later collect their teachings and organize them into a book. And that wasn't even...
But it was supposed to be one book. It wasn't supposed to be 4.
No, there are 3 scrolls of Isaiah.
I'm sure that the traditional, I think the traditional view on Daniel, for example, would be like, yeah, Daniel was like writing this part in Aramaic because blah blah, he wanted people who spoke Aramaic to understand this part but not this part or something, like.
And that's why Jesus spoke in parables, to make sure that he confused the people listening, so that they would not believe it. Because that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's important to know that the true prophets will always fuck with you.
Okay. And JoJo Freelancer again, and let's not always see the same hands. Let's see. What are the oldest manuscripts and fragments we have of Job, and did the text have vowels?
Is
what?
Job in the is Job in the Dead Sea
There
Scrolls?
is Job in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
I think there
none
is.
of the
There
Dead
is
Sea
Job in the
Scrolls
Dead
have
Sea.
vowels.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. The adding vowels to the text was something that was added later on because people were forgetting how to, because the people needed it. They weren't speaking this language every day. They couldn't just read the text without vowels and know what it says. They needed the vowels.
Yeah.
Although they probably were still using vowelless text for like, for synagogue reading and stuff like that. Like the Masoretic text is not a Bible scroll, right? It's a book or a codex.
Yeah.
And do we have any more Christians?
No. That's it.
Okay. All right then. We're going to do 38 this coming Saturday. Is that yes? That we're all good with that?
No. Next week.
We're not doing anything this Saturday.
No.
We're doing Saturday today.
What?
We're doing Saturday today.
That was why we're doing it today.
Okay.
It's the Lord's Day. It's the Storm God, the Storm Lord Day today.
The Storm Lord.
Oh!
Yeah.
Balseora.
All right then. And we're not. Are we doing another midweek thing next week or no?
No. There's no need to. I need to prepare for it for the next chapters because oh my god.
Yep. It's going to be a roller coaster. Bucket of chuckles.
Of course.
Oh my God,
what are we doing after Job?
Psalms.
Yep. Psalms.
I have no idea how to tackle.
I don't know why you're stressing out over it. Like, it's really not that difficult. Like,
No,
like for
mainly, what am I going to do with it? Because I'm not going to go over all the Psalms. Like, I'm not going
So,
to have
like,
commentary on
This
Psalms.
show is about reading the Bible. We don't have to understand it.
I
like,
know, but
a
like
lot of it.
my preparation,
Now,
etc.
this is not a regular Bible study. we
Right. No,
we kind of do want to understand it.
the thing is, like, we'll start off talking a little bit about like the Psalter, and then like the Eloistic Psalms or something like that. But then we can we can pick out the actual like interesting stuff. Like, obviously a lot of it is like against the wicked, and a lot of it's like, oh, praise be to God, I'd love to suck his cock or something like that. We can skip over stuff like that after we've talked about it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
If we
so
could
like
get a couple classifications together, this is sucking God's dick in A minor. Thank you. Commentary over. Moving on.
Yeah.
And then
if there's
But
like
I
something
only
like
agreed
actually
to kiss his ass forever.
yeah, if there's something actually
quite
like
a lot of-
significant, something that actually matters, then we can talk about it.
Yeah, we can
Okay.
sing. We can sing it in
I'll
Hebrew.
I'll try to figure it out. I'll try. I need to go. So
Yeah,
please
alright.
finish it up already.
All right.
All right,
Yeah,
join the
so-
Discord. That's what you got to do. You got to join the Discord.
It's starting to smell really good in here. So yeah, let's finish.
All right then. Good night. Hasta.
Bye.